Welcome to this Module 1 for Franciscan Leadership. During this lesson, we'll be taking a look at you, the Franciscan leader, what it really means to be a Franciscan leader. And this is something very important and fundamental for the rest of the year. So, you have been doing a couple of activities over the past couple of days in which we've been talking about this milestone of your spiritual journey. This is something which is extremely important to take a look at your life and how has God been present at different moments of your life. God is constantly revealing himself to us in different moments of your life, and it's so important to take a look at that. Took a look at my mirror. What is your view of yourself? How do other people view you? How do you view God? And then where are you on your faith spectrum? It's so important to always go on a journey to get closer and closer to God, and that is so important to continue on that spectrum closer and closer to where God wants you to be. So, what I would like to take a look for this idea of the Franciscan leader, for that Franciscan piece, I would like to take a look at one quote from the Testament in two parts, really. The Testament is really St. Francis's last will, last thoughts that he gave to his brothers and to us before he died. So it really is like, okay, this is how I lived my life. Now this is how I want you to live your lives. And this is the quote that we're going to take a look at. And after the Lord gave me brothers, no one showed me what I had to do, but the Most High revealed himself to me that I should live according to the pattern of the Holy Gospel. This first part here, the Lord gave me some brothers. This is something which is extremely important because it is so important to understand that for St. Francis, he did not choose the brothers that he had. The Lord gave him the brothers. Here at Curly, for example, you came at a particular time with 150 or however many different brothers in your class and 450 or however many there are at Curly. It is extremely important to recognize that the Lord, God, chose you and these men to be here at Curly at a particular time. That is the perspective that St. Francis viewed on brotherhood. That brotherhood is not something that I choose. And it's not only friendships. Oftentimes we choose our friends based on, I like him, I don't like him, whatever. Brothers are someone that God gives you. That is brotherhood to St. Francis. And that totally changes the way we view our life and how we relate to other people. Based on, I choose you, but then it has a little bit of a different viewpoint if we truly see that God gave me these men, these people in my life at this moment in order to grow in my relationship with them and grow in closer relationship with God. So you see this picture of the Curly Chapel, all of these candles, and this was a freshman class last year. It really shows that God chose all of these young men to be together at a particular time, in a particular place, for a particular purpose. No one showed me what I should do. There's no guidebook to brotherhood. It's a very complex thing, filled with human relationships in complex situations. Sometimes we'll get along, sometimes we will not. Sometimes we'll have ups and downs. This is all part of brotherhood. There's not a book, there's not a set formula as to how to live a life of brotherhood, how to live the fraternal life. So how do I learn how to live a life of brotherhood? Christ himself will reveal himself to me. And this is where we get the gospel. Only God, through the gospel, through how he has revealed himself, for example, in the life of St. Francis, through the cross of San Damiano, did he reveal to Francis how to live brotherhood, how to live his life of fraternity. And this is something which is extremely important. When we see how we will live our lives with our brothers, how we're going to live as a curly man, do we believe that God himself will reveal how to live that with me? Ultimately, through the Holy Gospel. Another quote from the Testament has to deal with the leper. This is something which was extremely important to St. Francis. So we have the importance of brotherhood, number one. Second thing, the encounter of Francis with the leper. Very interesting quote. When I was in sin, the sight of lepers nauseated me beyond measure. But then God himself led me into their company, and I had pity on them. A couple of things I want to look at in this quote. First of all, this idea of sin. We're going to be taking a look at this notion at several times throughout this year. But really, what is this notion of sin? Sin, in the Christian perspective, is a self-centeredness versus the opposite of sin, virtue, which is an other-centeredness. So think about this. When you sin, think of any sin, ultimately you are thinking more about yourself than about others, about other people, about God. You're thinking about what's best for yourselves. So when he was in sin, when he only thought about himself, when he saw these people with leprosy, it made him sick. But once God revealed himself to Francis, and he began to see God in the leper, I had pity on them. And in some translations, it says, what was bitter, the leper, what was bitter became sweet. Because Francis began to see God in the other, in the leper. My brothers, here at Curly, who are the lepers? Who are those people in your life right now who is a leper that when you see them, you don't want to be around them? There has to be some. Each and every one of us have lepers in our lives. Who are they? God is calling you to encounter these people in your life and to take you from sin, from this self-centeredness, to a life of virtue, to recognize Jesus himself in them. I believe that here at Curly, the strength of our Curly brotherhood is only as strong as we take care of, we feel that the lepers are included. Those at the fringe of perhaps our community, those who sit alone. Another aspect of Franciscan spirituality and what it means to be a Franciscan leader is that of the Eucharist. I'm going to make this very simple. Francis had a great devotion to the Eucharist. That when he saw, as you see in this quote here, when he saw Jesus Christ truly present in the hands of a priest on the altar, when he would adore Jesus in the most blessed sacrament, he really found his relationship with God through this. Why was this? And there's two main reasons that I would like to underline here as to why St. Francis has such a devotion to the Eucharist. One, Francis was a man of humility. He loved the humility of Christ. He was humble. So when we see God humbling himself so much that he becomes a piece of bread to nourish us, St. Francis really found that to be such a loving act and something to be followed. This humility of God. Second thing, Francis has such an obedience to the Church universal. And the Eucharist is at the center of the Church. So what unites the Church is the Eucharist. And so St. Francis has such a devotion to the Eucharist because he has such a devotion and a love for the Church. The last thing under this umbrella of you, the Franciscan leader, that Franciscan piece, is an obedience to the Scriptures. St. Francis one day said, okay, God, I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to open up the Scriptures to 3 quotes, and what it says, I will follow. These are the 3 quotes that St. Francis opened to. Just take a moment to read these 3 quotes. You see a lot of Franciscan spirituality in all of these quotes. Going, selling everything you have, taking nothing for the journey, poverty, obedience to God, so on and so forth. We too have to be obedient to the Scriptures. We need to read the Scriptures, have Lectio Divina, pray with the Scriptures, and believe that the Scriptures are not just a dead document that was written many years ago that has nothing to do with us now, but that the Scriptures are alive. The Scriptures are God speaking to us today. Do we truly believe that? Okay, so now we're going to take a look at this leader. What does it mean to be a leader? When you are a leader, you will be doing something called ministry. There are many different types of leaders and many different ways that someone can be a leader. For example, someone could be a dictator. They can tell you exactly what to do. They have this follow the leader. I'm going to put up my hand, you have to put up your hand. When we talk about the Franciscan leader, we don't talk about a dictator or a president. We talk about a minister. You will do ministry. And the word ministry comes from the Greek word diakonia, like a deacon, diakonia, which mainly means service, serving at a table, the work of a slave, a servant. So when you will be doing ministry, campus ministry, you will be peer ministers. You're going to be ministering to your peers. You're not going to be above them. You're not going to have some sort of a power over them. Rather, you will serve them. Diakonia. A definition of ministry is a public action on behalf of the Christian community to bring about the reign of God. So let's take a look at each one of these 3 aspects. First of all, it is a public action. At Curly, how is the FYM, campus ministry, public? How is it seen by the community? What do we do in public? Is your Christian life, how you live your Christian life, public? Or is it just private? I do this, I go to Mass, I believe in God. Or do you do things so that others can see, others can be helped, served by your faith? The Christian community. We are not just a clique, campus ministry. We are part of a larger community. What is this Christian community? Well, that could be the community here at Curly. We're called to serve the community, and the community calls us to be servants. It could be of the church here in Baltimore, the church here in the United States, the church universal. Could be society. We're called by society and for society to serve. And finally, the reign of God. In our ministry, we do the will of God. We have to contemplate and fulfill the will of God, the mission that Jesus came to begin, not our own mission. For example, I would love to have Taco Tuesday as part of FYM, and I would love to have Fajita Friday. Is that really the reign of God? I would really love to go every weekend to Hershey Park. Okay, is that the will of God? If it's not the will of God, it's not true ministry. So we need to pray about how to bring about the reign of God, God's will in the world, in our lives, and in our community. So the last thing we're going to go over in this module is a model of ministry is that of Jesus Christ. And there are three characteristics that we can really speak about when looking at Jesus. The first one is that Jesus was approachable, meaning that everyone came to Jesus. We have all of these stories in the Gospels of people coming to Jesus. Let me ask you, are you approachable? Do people feel comfortable to approach you and to ask you for help, to seek guidance, to do whatever? Are you approachable? Is FYM, campus ministry, our faith life here at Curly, approachable? Do people feel comfortable? So it should give me four models here. I'm sorry, not three. Second is that Jesus was open to everyone. Who are you not open to? Who is FYM campus ministry not open to? Just open to diehard Catholics? Perhaps someone of a certain program level here at Curly? A certain mentality, race, in the church, gender, perhaps certain political views. Jesus was open to everyone, including the sinner, including those who were different than him. Are you open to everyone? Are we open to everyone? Jesus was non-judgmental. Now, this does not say that he did not challenge people. He challenged people very much. But really, I think when we talk about non-judgmentalism, he judged the actions, not the person. For example, we have that famous scene of the woman caught in adultery. He didn't go and judge her, say, you're a terrible person. He said, go and sin no more. Let that he who has no sin judge you. And everyone just went away. It's not our role to judge people. It's our role to love them. Who do you judge? Who do we at Curly judge? What are some judgmental attitudes that we as a Curly community have that perhaps judge people, put them in boxes, and not allow them to grow to their fullest potential? Jesus was inclusive. He was inclusive to all. As a leader, we also need to be inclusive to everyone. Who's outside of our circle? Who's not good enough for our time, for our talents, for our help, for our love? Who in our Curly community does not feel included? We cannot say that we are a Curly community if we do not include everyone, all of our brothers. So Jesus stands as a model of ministry. This is how Jesus lived his life. And this is how we are called to live our lives as Franciscan leaders here at Curly.